units. Okay, so last quarter, you guys learned about the concept, the discipline, and the subject matter of economics. Now, for this quarter, we will focus on analyzing how the market economy works. Okay, so we will go through on how individual interact with markets and how they behave. So economics will tackle, in second quarter we will tackle microeconomics, and then at the later part, macroeconomics. So we are already aware that limited wants and needs are the fundamental problem of our economy. That's why we need to allocate these limited resources by doing a system or by creating a system, the four economic system, so we can properly utilize these resources to satisfy the needs and the wants of the citizens. Katong three basic problem, which is what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Now here in microeconomics, we will analyze now the behavior of the two fundamental decision-making units, which are medyo lag lang, which are the firms and the household. So the firms, they are the primary producing units of our economy, and most of the firms exist because of profit. And there are also some firms that dili gyud profit ilang target to operate. Mga non-profit organizations. Okay, but mostly they are profit maximizers. So they turn input into output, and we also have the household, the consuming units of the economy. So the household buy what it wants and what it can afford. Right, so if you can remember the questions katong sa exam, so the statement na limited resources, a limited need and wants, can that statement be applied to low, middle, and high income households? The answer is yes, because though we are earning higher income, it's still limited because we have unlimited wants and needs, and in some way we have to pay for those commodities that we are consuming every day. So masking si vice ganda pa na imuhang income, it's still limited. You cannot still buy everything, right? So household and firms, these two here, they interact in the market. So we have two types of market in a simplified economy. We have the input market, and we also have the output market. Alright, so we already know that household are the owners of the factors of production, the land, the labor, and the capital. So households supply these inputs in the input market, and then from the input market, the firms demand these types of goods. Again, since firms, they turn input into output, so in return, the firms will pay those goods and services or inputs na iyang demand, and that payment is considered to be the income of the household. Now, once the input turns into output, the firms will supply it to the output market, where in the same output market, the consumer will demand for goods and services, or the final output for consumption. So in return for getting that final output, now the household will pay for those goods and services from its income nga nakuha niya sa firm. And then that payment will then go to the firm as a revenue and to earn profit. So what you see now here is the circular flow model of a simplified economy on how firms and household interact in the market. So when we say market, it's in any place as long as there's an uh, interaction or exchanges in goods and services between the actors of the economy. Because there are other actors on put aside from firms and household. We also have the government and the rest of the world. Now, with this analysis, we can say that the prices of the market are determined based on the demand and the supply. So we will be focusing our second quarter topics, especially in microeconomics, in supply, demand, consumers, and producers. So first, we will talk about demand or the law of demand. Kahinay ba? There. So what is a demand? Hinay kayo. Boom, tra. So in economics, demand is a consumer's desire to purchase goods and services and willingness to pay a price for a specific good. So the keyword there is consumer's desire and willingness to pay. So pag walay desire ang consumer and he's not willing to pay for that specific good or services, then we cannot consider it as a demand. So it's a relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. So the quantity demanded, on the other hand, it pertains to amount or number of units. Okay, so the demand is in general term, quantity demanded pertains about number of units of a product that a household would buy given a period of time na siya. If it could buy all it wanted at current market price. So as long as willing si customer or si consumer to pay the price, then that consumer can be considered having a demand. Pero kung nalan siya desire to purchase pero dili siya willing to pay, then di na siya ma-consider. Okay? Next. Now, we can present demand in three ways. We have the demand schedule, we have the demand curve, and later we have the demand function. So demand schedule is simply a table of values. Ayun. So the table of values showing how much of a given product of a household would willing to buy at different prices. Now in real world, we are not faced with these options, no, because most of the goods and services are only on sale at a single price. But with this demand analysis, we would know how the consumer behaves if they are faced with different prices. So let's say demand for good X. So if the price of good X is 10, the quantity demanded is 25. And then as the price increases to 15, the demand would decrease to 20. And if price is 20, the demand is 10. If the price is 25, the demand is 5. And then if the price is 30, the demand is 0. Alright, so if you have noticed, as the price increases, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, the quantity demanded decreases. 25, 20, 10, 5, 0. So kung ato na siyang i-plot sa graph, which is the demand curve, a graph illustrating how much of a given product or household will be willing to buy at different prices, you'll notice that the demand curve is slope sloping downward. Tama ba ang term? Sloping downward. Yes. So price is at y-axis, and then the quantity demanded is at x-axis. So if the price is 10, the quantity demanded is 25, just the bottom. Tara. And then if the price is 30, the quantity demanded is 0. Alright, so the negative relationship between the price and the quantity demanded is 1. Okay, we call it the law of demand. So when we say law, it means that it's already established and it is as expected. Now in social science, when we say law, so it's the expected behavior of the individual. Alright, so in economics, the law of demand, so if the price increases, the behavior of the consumer, it will decrease its demand. So that's the law of demand. Saan ito? Ayun. So the law of demand shows the negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. So as the price rises, quantity demanded decreases. So as the price falls, quantity demanded increases. Ceteris paribus. So ceteris paribus, just information, is a popular economic term, a Latin phrase meaning all other things remain equal or constant, because there are other factors or many factors affecting demand. So dili lang ang price. So that's why we put ceteris paribus, so we can avoid other factors in the environment affecting the behavior. Alright, so going back sa atong graph, it is downward sloping. Again, because of the negative relationship or the inverse relationship of price and quantity. So if you notice, if the price is 30, the quantity demanded is 0. So what does it mean? Kasi pasabot ana kung mo 0 ang quantity demanded sa price 30. So it means that there's a limitation in income. Meaning at price 30, dili naka-afford ang consumer to buy the goods. For example, for good X. So kung ang presyo ni good X 30, si consumer dili na niya afford. So wala siya ma-demand. Okay, so that pertains to limitation. Now the quantity demanded will also touches the x-axis. So let's say na siya diri sa 30. So if quantity demanded is 30 and the price is 0, pwede ba? Sir, mo demand siya 30 ka product X at price 0. So mahimog libre ang product. Yes, that's possible. So let's see gano na siya. So these are the reasons why our demand curve is sloping downwards. Now in your module, the author or the writer only put it kaning kwan lang. Put lang siya duha ka reason. So he stated there 2 reasons why demand curve is downward sloping. We have the substitution effect and we have the income effect. Now I just added kaning number 3, the law of diminishing marginal utility, because this is also important in the analysis. So number 1, substitution effect. So changes in price motivate consumers to buy relatively cheaper substitute goods. So let's say we have 2 goods, chicken and pork meat. So if the price of the pork meat will increase, so the consumer will opt out to buy that good and will purchase the substitute instead, which is the chicken meat. So there's a substitution effect. So if the price of one good increases, its demand will decrease. Kaya mo shift sila sa substitute. So next is income effect. Changes in price affect the purchasing power of consumers' income. Meaning, pag mataas yung income, mataas pa rin yung demand for a specific good. Now, kung tong una, ma-afford lang nimo karang magtudlo-tudlo na kadyag palit og mga isaw, fishbowl, just gawas sa eskwelahan. But since ning taas man nimong allowance from 500 ni mag 1,000, then maka-afford na ka madto sa coffee project. Kaya na, so your demand will change based on also your income. That's income effect. And then the last one, I added the law of diminishing marginal utility. So it's also a law, meaning it's already established. And when we say diminishing, meaning decreasing, marginal, additional or incremental, and then utility, that's satisfaction. So decreasing, additional, satisfaction. So how can we apply this and why it is one of the reason why demand curve is sloping downward. So balik ta ganiha sa curve. So let's say gutom kayo ko and I'm craving for burger. Like karang mupatay jud kog tao kay gusto jud ko makaog burger ana ko kagutom. So nipalit kog isa ka burger. So pagkaon ako sa burger, mura kog nasa heaven. Ana maka-post din ko sa Facebook, sa Twitter, kasi nga sa craving satisfied. Ana chuchu. So kay na-satisfy na ko, nabusog ko. And then na-offer ning baba, nag-buy one take one ng burger. At the same time, so nipalit na pug ko og another set. So na nakoy tulo ka burger. So nakakaon ako isa, nagdungog pa jud isa kay ni barato. So akong satisfaction since nakakaon naman ko, di na kay nga na akong cravings. Medyo ning gamay na akong cravings for burger, but since barato man, sige go, palita. So pagkaon ako sa tulo ka burger, sa additional 2, medyo sumol naman no. Naglay na maglasa mo na mag-iring ang kuan, mapati, or ilaga siguro ni manang ni barato. So medyo luod na. And then, mas ni barato pag ilang burger. Buy one, take 2. So nipalit na pug ko. Which is pila na ako burger ako makaon, mga 6 na kabuk, magluod naman. So magluod na kayo ikaon kay imagine 6 ka burger. Like hindi na ma-imagine, right? So mas king libre pa ang burger at price 0. Any additional burger na imong kaunon, mas king 30 pa nakabuok ang ihatag sa imuha. Right? Your satisfaction will decrease because of that law of diminishing marginal utility. So mo end lang gid na imong quantity demand, let's say 30. So pag mo additional pa kag isa, 31, dili na nimo siya dawaton masking libre pa at price 0. So that's one of the reason why our demand curve is downward sloping due to the law of marginal or law of diminishing marginal utility. Alright? Gets? Nagets ba? Ano ko siyang giapil? Say yes daw sa chat or say yes sa mic. Okay, thank you. Kinaminaw pa mo. Sige lang, happy tatamahuman. But by the way, kani siya nga kato ikat 3 nga reason wala na siya sa module. Ako lang gi-add. So you'll be aware. So we also have factors affecting our demand, or we call it the non-price determinants of demand. We have 5. So the first 3, we have the taste and preference, population, number of consumers, and expectations. So ito na isa-isahon. Short discussion lang. So taste and preference. So this factor here, muna siyang pinakalisod i-calculate or i-capture because we do have different taste and preference for goods and services. So for example, akong mama, kung piliyon niyang powdered soap, panlaba, let's say between Surf and Ariel, ito mas barato ang Surf compared sa Ariel, she would prefer Ariel nga mas king mahal because kay proven and tested na niya. So that's how taste and preference can affect demand. Masking mahal ang price, she would still opt to use Ariel instead of Surf. And the next kay population and number of consumers. So obviously, pag mas daghan ang consumer or daghan ang tao, mas daghan og demand. So let's say if you will like put up a business dito sa Lagyong Dapit or sa countryside nga bukid-bukid kayo. So pag-expect na daan that your the demand for your product will be lesser compared to if you put up a business like within the city lang. So it can affect your demand. And then next, expectation. So this is pertains to expectation of prices or future prices. So let's say sa gasoline, gibalita sa news that tomorrow there will be a price increase in the gasoline, like 5 peso per liter ang increase. So ang demand sa gasoline today kay mo increase. Why? Because barato pa man siya. So katong mga sakyanan diha magpa full tank dayon. Kay kung ugma pa ka magpa full tank, mahal na siya 5 peso per liter. So expectation for future price can also affect your demand. So we also have price of related commodities or goods and income and wealth. Now sa prices of related goods, we have two types of goods related to this. We have the substitute goods and the complementary goods. Ito. So substitute goods are goods that can serve as replacements for one another, but it not necessarily equal or identical. So let's say katong ganiha, pork and chicken. So if the price of pork will increase, the consumer will go for chicken. So it can also affect the demand for meat or for pork. We also have complementary goods. So these are goods that go together, like toothpaste, toothbrush, cars, and gasoline. So for example, for gasoline, pag mo baba ang presyo sa gasolina, may mong Gs na lang per litro, obviously daghan na kay tao ang gusto magkasakyanan. Kaya barato naman ang gasolina. So a decrease in the price of one results an increase in the demand for the other. So let's say in a scenario, if the price of gasoline will decrease, what happened to the demand for cars? Obviously, since barato ng gasolina and they are complementary goods, the demand for cars will increase. Alright, clear? Next is wealth and income, or income and wealth. So when we define income, these are the earnings of the household. So dito na mo maigo ang wages, salaries, profit, interest payment, basta any earnings na ma-receive sa household will be considered as income. And then when we say wealth, para siyang total value of the household that household owns, like land property, jewelry, man cars, ni mga diamonds, gold bars, unsa pa diha iyang mga mga value niya, mga physical values nga gi-own, minus sa iyang mga liabilities, mga utang sa GSIS, utang sa land bank, may ngana. So wealth is also considered, so since value man siya, total value minus liability, so that's net worth. So income and net worth. So we have two goods associated with income and wealth. We have the normal goods and the inferior goods. So normal goods, these are goods that demand goes up when income is higher. So let's say fine dining restaurant. So if your income is high, then most probably your demand for fine dining will also increase. We also have inferior goods. Now these are types of goods where demand tends to fall when income increases. So let's say katong turo-turo. So since katong gamay pang imong income, imong ma-afford lang kay turo-turo. So na-promote ka to become a manager with increase in salary, and then imong demand sa turo-turo kay would decrease because manager naman ka, di ka gusto makita sa imong mga tao des gawas mo palit og barato nga pagkaon. So dito jud ka sa Jollibee, dito ka kwan choking or mapa-food panda na lang ka. So that's an example of inferior goods. So those fives are the factors affecting demand. Alright, so be careful with the definition, especially between demand and quantity demanded. Naghang pa. So shift of demand versus movement along the curve. Alright guys, so please see my background sa akong video. Makita no? Okay, whiteboard diha nga na graphic paper. Okay. So when we say a shift in demand, klaro ba? Check na ako. Hindi ko makita. Ayun. Kana. Aside sa PPT, ako ang background nako. Nako i-show kadali. So I have here my demand curve. P ang sa y-axis, Q ang nasa x-axis. So kaning black here is our demand curve, downward sloping. So when we say a shift in demand, okay, muna na siya sa nani sa activity this week. So a shift in demand, it means that the demand, it's either will increase outward, kaning black na arrow outward, or it will decrease inward. Shift to the right, shift to the left. Okay, so that's a shift of the demand. So may mga reasons nga mo shift na demand because of those 5 factors. So taste preferences, consumer size, expectations, income, and related goods. So those 5 ang reason nga mag-shift ang demand to the left or to the right. Or basta outward ang movement, meaning nag-increase siya. No, outward ang shift. Increase, inward ang shift, decrease. Alright, but when we say movement along the curve, like kaning mga red dot here, along the black demand curve, it means that there's a change in quantity demanded. So let's say the price from 1 mo increase ang price to 2. So the quantity demanded, let's say 10 here. So pag increase the price to 2, the quantity demanded will decrease to 8. So that's a change in quantity demand. It's just a movement along the curve. Right? So please remember the difference. There's a change in quantity demand, movement along the curve. Change in demand, a shift of the demand curve from either inward or outward. Alright, clear ang difference? Alright, so let's move on. Balik tas PowerPoint. Okay, so market demand. Market demand is just the summation of all individual demands. So let's say I have my own demand, Justoni's demand, Shanti's demand, Pearl's demand, Rollins demand. If you sum them up, that's the market demand. Ano na siya ka-easy? Ano yung concept? Alright, this one here, pinakalas na gyud. Oops, naghang. Wait sa. Okay, so another way we can present demand is through demand function. It shows the relationship between quantity demanded and the price of the product. And it can be written as Q sub D equals A minus BP, where Q sub D is the quantity demanded, P is the price, A is the Q intercept, or the value of Q if price is 0, or you can put there all the factors affecting demand other than the price, and then B is the slope, or the change in P over the change in D. So if you see the negative sign there, the negative sign means the inverse relationship of price and quantity. So if your price here will increase, it's obvious that your quantity demanded will decrease. So if the price will decrease or small, then your QD will increase. So that's your demand function. Now this here is a simplified form. I'll show you sa nasa module para dili mo ma-confuse because the writer put in a general form. So please see my video na ko'y gikuan. Sa nag-loading there. Though it's blurry, makita niyo sa module 1.2. Alam mo ka-confuse niya or ka-libo gani. QD is equals to the function of PY, PRG, PS. Or price of goods and services, income of the consumer, price of rated goods, or population. So this is just in general form. So what I present earlier sa PowerPoint, kung makita niyo sa PowerPoint, that's the simple form. So pareha na sila. Because if you put values out of it, then it will lead you to the simple form. So nag-loading pa. So karang QD equals to 60 minus 10P. So it's the same. Alright, so nice simple computation sa module. So if you have any questions regarding that, you can message me anytime.